So the strategy of developing new products is a strategy that is more and more important because the life cycle of products are being reduced. The amount of competition is also growing, and the consumers are looking for improvements all the time and are looking for improvements all the time. So it's important for companies to be innovative in order to continue to adapt. So how do you adapt? You look at opportunities. You develop opportunities based on research, real opportunities, and the best opportunities are the ones that are strategic, much more better than opportunities that are tactical. You look to make an improvement. So the improvement are not just the product improvement, it can also be the service improvement, it could be the operation improvements. All through the company, there's ways to improve, and you could make improvement also in terms of profit margin and relationship with suppliers and identifying better distributors. So there's many ways to improve. And that a process of improving is called just noticeable difference. So you don't want too much just noticeable difference, because oftentimes if you have too much of that, you will appear as being too different. And many consumers are sort of intimidated by the consumption of a product that is too different, that they are not comfortable. So you want to make sure there's a level of comfort in the product, that they can recognize some level of familiarity. And so with familiarity, people will be seeing the product as being easier to use, more convenient. They won't require too many changes. Oftentimes, the consumers don't want changes. They just want the improvement to be sort of inside, or a technology that just, they use it the same way, but it produces more, or it's more effective, or something like this. So the next thing is, you cannot be the best to everyone, and you have to identify who you want to be the best. And so it's important to identify who are your customers. Not all customers are your customers, and you can't be as effective to everyone. So you're looking for heterogeneity, differences between consumers, and you try to identify the differences that are the more meaningful for the product that you're making, or for your company. And this is called segmenting. So segmenting is dividing, targeting is selecting, and then positioning is creating a meaning, an identity for the product and for your customers, and in comparisons to your competitors. So your competitors have their identity, you have your identity, and your competitors have an expected identity that they hope that you will have. And so your positioning is therefore this image that, but it's not just the image, it's also the meaning, it's also the benefit that your product will offer. Positioning are best when there's one or two attributes, and not more than one or two attributes. Otherwise, you have too many characteristics that they have to remember, and therefore they don't remember it, or they believe it's not true because you have too many qualities. It's like someone that you would have a conversation with someone that, let's say, you would want to have a relationship, you would want to date, and this person, you ask them, what's your best quality? And they say, I can't tell you of one best quality. I have 100 qualities that are better than everybody else. I mean, this is arrogance, obviously. You can't have that many. You can't be so perfect. So products are the same. Nobody's perfect, and they have to focus on one thing that is very important for who they know. This is going to make some differences. Then you have this concept of marketing mix, where you have the price, place, promotion, and product. And this is what you do focus on after you've decided what are the strategies. So this gets implemented through what's called the plan and the actions. So let's look at a very symbolic company and type of products, such as sodas and Coca-Cola and Pepsi-Cola and RC-Cola and so forth. These are very famous products and extremely competitive. However, one could argue that even in this very competitive environment, you can always find a space to grow. So how can you grow in such a competitive environment? Same thing is you look, and maybe same thing, and even more important thing is you look for opportunities, something that is changing in the environment that you can take advantage of. maybe you look at a change of trend. So you go from glass to plastic bottle. Maybe you change of trend from plastic bottle to aluminum cans. And so you could look at the material for the container. You could also look at the amount of content that you creating. Maybe it's different sizes for different markets, for different targets. All right. So these are brands which are in fact very successful. Some of these are some of the top brands in their markets. These are not very common brands in the USA. They Virgin is, but KR and Big Cola, Inca Cola, and Zevia are cola drinks that comes from South America. They are very successful in this market. Coca-Cola also has to make some changes, and they create different changes of their product. So they created the Coca-Cola Life, which was a Coca-Cola with stevia leaf extract with lower calories and lower sugar and so forth. So they make differences. Coca-Cola created a product with coffee. So a lot of the product I'm going to show you now that Coca-Cola created, not based on an ID. It's not like Coca-Cola wake up in the morning and they say, oh, we're going to do, I don't want to drink Coke, I don't want to drink coffee, so I'm going to do a cola coffee drink. No, it's because they did some research and found that there was a group of customers that wanted this specific product. And so a lot of these very unusual cola products and Coca-Cola products, you will find them in Asian countries, in fact. And I would say the most prolific, I think, Coca-Cola new product development come from either Korea and mostly from Japan. So that's a Korean product. And then you have the zero sugar Coca-Cola Energy. And you can totally imagine why they went for this type of product, because Coca-Cola was perceived as the energy drink to some extent until products like Red Bull came. So a lot of people may say, I'll get a coffee, I'll get a Coke, or I'll get a Red Bull. So how do you compete? Well, you try to compete by showing that you also have a solution within Coca-Cola. And the solution sometimes is to use the name of the brand name of the parent company, but sometimes it's to create a totally different product that would be called Gatorade, Powerade, or whatever, and you create this new brand that belongs to already Coca-Cola. So Coca-Cola has been so far to have created some apple flavored Coca-Cola. Why not? When I've seen that, I was curious, and I can see that it could probably work. A Coke with a sort of a acidic apple, but they also created the lime and lemon and the light lemon Coca-Cola flavor, but also the peach, and so the clear lime, and also the vanilla float Coca-Cola. So the, I would imagine that one is more on the sweet side of the flavors. But then in Japan, there's another one. It's called Coca-Cola Plus. So the Japanese here are very keen on some kind of addition addition of some nutrients or something. So they've added a specific. It's not an enzyme, but it's like a. I guess maybe it's an enzyme. It's a digestive fiber that they put in the Coke, and it's the Coca-Cola Plus. Um, Remarkable, because you see some markets are more eager and looking for innovations. They're more open-minded and they're looking for a complexity of the product. And here's a product that I believe is very complex. This is just a tonic water, and there's all kinds of brand of tonic water that have been essentially controlling the market. And then Fever Tree came. So very saturated market, and they came with all kinds of variation. And really, they stand out. They're much better, and they're oftentimes recommended by professional cocktail makers. Cocktail making. Coca-Cola responded to this in 2019, and they created a Coca-Cola, like the one you know, but as a as a pre-made Coca-Cola for mixing, for making cocktails. So obviously, it's very known that Coca-Cola is oftentimes used as a soda that someone would add to a spirit. And so what's the opportunity? The opportunity is to make Coca-Cola, pre-made Coca-Cola for people that make cocktails. That's not the opportunity. That's the strategy. Oh, yeah. Oh, you're right. Yeah, so the strategy would be making a new product for Coca-Cola, specific for specific target of people that like quality soda for their cocktails. Exactly. That's the strategy. New product development, blah, 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 for a specific target, not for everyone. And so what's the opportunity? The opportunity is at home cocktail movement. Because of the pandemic, people are making more cocktail at home. They can't go to the bar and so forth. So they're not looking for the standard cola. They're looking for a specific cola that would be made for that. And then there's also the craft spirit movement. So if you have a craft spirit that you're mixing with a mass-produced cola, maybe it doesn't make so much sense. So let's make a special cola. So you see how businesses are making decision to create new products, and these new products have to match with um, existing movements. Okay. Here's another interesting one, is a cola made for specific regions. So in France, just to use an example, they have a cola made in Brittany. In fact, in Brittany, Brittany is a region in France. It's a region that is right across from Boston. If you were to sail straight from Boston, you probably end up in Brittany. And in Europe, on the extreme west side of France. And in Brittany, there's a lot of um, uh, local culture. It's like a ethno subculture of France. And this region, in fact, has several brands of cola that are specific to the region. So some people woke up in the morning and say, I'm going to start a business. What is that? I'm going to make a Coca-Cola made in Brittany. Good luck. It won't work. It worked. It worked because they are not claiming to be the same, as they are making a cola very different with the local values and culture. Then someone started making the Paris cola, and then someone else starting to make the Auvergnat. So Auvergnat is like in the center of France. But this is just not France, but even before France, there was a Coca-Cola sort of created in the Middle East, and it's using the name Mecca Cola. So Mecca Cola, Mecca, if you don't know, is a very famous religious city, which is in Saudi Arabia, and so they made the name of the cola very look like the name of that city, and they have also sort of a cultural bias and even a little bit of a political movement inside this brand of cola, where they're saying, if you're supporting Middle East and the people from the Middle East, you should bring drinking the cola from the people in the Middle East. So Mecca Cola was created, and it's also a successful brand of cola that's been growing in many of those countries. Um, Mecca Cola now has been generating variations of different sodas, not just, they started with the cola flavored soda, but now they're making all kinds of other sodas. But it's not just the Middle East or just France. This is in Scotland. So the Gaelic name for Scotland, I believe so, is Alba. So if you English, you say, I'm going to Scotland. If you speak Gaelic, you say, I go to Alba. So this company created, using the Gaelic name of Alba Cola. So Alba Cola is a limited edition, small batch production of cola soda produced in Scotland. So we see Scotland is very famous for Scotch, which is a type of whiskey, where they have some companies, quite a number of companies, making small numbers of spirits. And one of these companies started making small numbers of cola. So here's something else beside cola, but a tea. So Minute Maid makes some rather mass-produced tea, but they also went in Asian country making some tea which are more elaborate. Now going back to Coca-Cola, they also making small batch. So Coca-Cola, in order to respond to all of these different businesses, is they created small batch production of cola flavored with natural flavors of small farm supplied fruits. And so these are colas that are not easy to find, Coca-Cola products. They are sort of collector items now that people are collecting. So other companies started making in, I believe this is in the US, making some sodas using old-fashioned methods. And here is obviously Texacola, and Icon is a special model from Arcicola. So what is the idea? To make a special item? No, the idea is to respond to a need. The idea is to respond to a movement. The idea is to respond to a change. And the change is the opportunity, and the response to that change is either the strategy or the tactics. So when you're looking at a market, you're looking at what's called the time, sum. And so the TAM is the total available market. The sum is the market that is more specific to what you're trying to do. And then the sum is the measurement of how many people you believe you will be reaching out, selling the first year. Okay. Do you have any questions?
Yeah, Professor. Actually, I was just doing segmentation. Is that also just another way of saying segmentation?
Yes, it's another way of saying segmentation. I'm glad that you're saying that. That's a very good, smart idea. But it's not the same purpose, because segmentation is the act of identifying who's going to be your consumer, versus this is to sort of guess, estimate how much you're going to sell out of this consumer. So if you used time, sum as your segmentation, it will not be very precise, because it doesn't tell you who they are. It just tells you, it's just a formula, process, in order to guess, estimate how many people you're going to be selling the first year. But to do this well, you do much better if you have done segmentation and targeting before. So segmentation and targeting is going to be a description, a precise, and the more precise, the better, description of who is your target, almost like till the point that you have a picture, an image of what this target looks like. You could visualize who this person is. And once you have this visualization, then you can do better the time, sum, and sum. But you could do the time, sum, and sum just like this. So the time, sum, and sum is not a very accurate mathematical tool. It's just a broad overview that allows you to sort of guess, estimate how much products you will be able to sell. It's not extremely scientific, but in business, that's as good as it gets to make some guesses. So let me show you some examples. This is a project that was done by students where they said, we're going to create so the opportunity was that a lot of celebrities go in depression and then fall in with some issues, psychological issues. And it's not a small number. Unfortunately, it's very common within celebrities to run into this. Most of the celebrities happen to be in LA. So these students were from LA, so they felt comfortable working on this project from LA. And so that's the opportunity. The strategy is to create a service, a psychological service that would support these people's needs. That's the strategy. And then the tactics are all the details you're going to have to do, from renting the building and from reaching out to this celebrity and so forth, all the different things that you do. That's the tactic. So when you look at this market, you go TAM, working musician and singers in the United States, 40,000. SAM, how many working of these musicians go to therapy? 7,200. So a certain percentage based on some research that they found that says how many people have psychological issues and how many of these actually look for help, right? So you find this as the secondary data. And then sum is the number of people in your area, so Los Angeles, and based on the percentage of people that you think you will reach in your area the first year. So if you have like in your area 100 people and you say that you're going to reach 5%, so you're going to reach 5 customers, right? And so then you can calculate how much are your services, and then you multiply these services by the number of customers, and then you get your revenue, and at the same time you can actually estimate your profit and show that your profit will get better the second year because you'll have all kinds of experience and reduction of costs in order to increase your profit. Carlo, did that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
So thank you for asking this question, because we see this is an additional tool that I'm bringing. This tool that I'm showing you right now is not in the textbook, unfortunately, and it's just a very simple thing. So it's tam, sam, sum. If you were to put tam, sam, sum and click Google Go, you will find that it's not a big secret, and it's a very good tool in order to make estimation. And these estimations are oftentimes estimations people are making in order to create budgets and also to see revenue when they are looking for funding. For example, if you're looking for an investor, you have to tell the investor how much you think you're going to be selling the first year, and if the investor is expecting you to talk about the time sum. So here's another example. Someone selling cassettes. So I know it's kind of strange, but the cassettes are back. There's a movement. There's a movement that started much earlier for vinyl discs, and the cassette started later, and it started really small and it stayed very small, but it's been growing much more bigger and steady in the past year. Anyway, so someone wants to say go into this business, they're going to look at the total music consumers. So that's a very big number. Then the total consumer who actually purchase physical music. So that's a much smaller number. And then the obtainable cassette market, which is much smaller within an area, within a penetration rate. When you do the tam, sam, sum, the more abstract, subjective element, they all sort of a little bit like that, but the more abstract is the penetration rate. Because once you identify this, you have to guess estimate how much is your company is going to sell to them. And so the penetration rate, the way to estimate it, it's based on a reasonable amount that you can reach the first year or the second year. And also it's to make it reasonable is you have to argue for the amount of work, of marketing and resources that you're going to put into getting those products to be sold. So the least resources you have, the smaller your number is going to have to be in order to be seen as reasonable. The more resources you have, and also let's say the less competitors and the higher the need and the more ready these people are for the need, the more you can raise the percentage. But those percentage for penetration rate oftentimes are 2, 3, 5%. They're not really, they're rarely very big. So people that give you a very high percentage for penetration rate are usually the people that are over optimistic or unrealistic. Another repetition today for today and from other classes is therefore you have to understand the concept of planning. And so to plan is you have to understand that you have two levels, the high level and the low level. You have the strategy and you have the tactic. And your tactic are implemented within your 4Ps. This is what this diagram is showing you. This design is showing you. The next design shows the exact same thing, but this time it's a table, which says the high level things such as the objective and the strategies, and then you have a lower level, which are the 4Ps, with each one of these having their own objective. So it's a sub-objective, not a corporate objective, and a sub-strategy, and then all the different tactics that you're going to unfold for each one of the P. When you look at this table, that's the explanation of why oftentimes accounting students that have a sort of a mind for understanding the relationship between business and the customers really do well in marketing, because they tend to be the most organized students. So they understand the concept of flow and organizing the processes. And then they understand the concept of going from opportunities to strategies to tactics. But this is all under the supervision of the objectives that the company had. Therefore, when you're developing your product, you have different product line decisions that you have to make. You have to also think about the brand that you're trying to grow. You're not just selling products, but you're also selling the brands and the benefit of the brands, the benefit of the product. Then I wanted to talk about this. It's not in the textbook, but I wanted you to have heard this for your general knowledge. Is when you are doing marketing, two most famous thing is marketing is satisfaction or satisfying the customers, and the second thing is marketing is the 4 Ps. I've said that many times, and that's unfortunately what people oftentimes remembers. And I guess that's better than nothing. What are the 4 Ps? Then they sort of remember product, price, promotion, and place. Okay, so that's the basic of the marketing on the 4 Ps. There is another theory that there's also the 6 Ps. This theory comes from the fact that some people say the 4 Ps are better for goods, and the 6 Ps is the extension of the 4 Ps when it comes to a service. So if you're doing the marketing of a concert, you should do the 6 Ps. If you're doing the marketing of a yogurt and almond milk, you should do the 4 Ps. If you're doing the marketing of a movie, you should do the 4 Ps. If you're doing the marketing of an airline, or transportation or UPS or something like that, you should do the 6 Ps. Okay, so what are the two additional Ps? There's process and people. So I believe process is maybe the first one to talk about, but they are both very connected. Is the fact that you have to organize how you produce, because you produce at the same time as it's consumed. You produce with the help or the participation sometimes of the consumers. So there needs to be some processes in order to ensure some standardization of the service. So it's not like you do one day good, one day not so good. You have a standard, and with the standard, you can keep a minimum amount of predictable quality that you want to sustain. Then people is the fact that because it's produced by the people, services are not only produced by the people. I mean, if you're buying a Coke, to go back to a previous example, from a vending machine, it's a service, but it's not from people. Services are mostly from people, but not only. That's the majority. It's the majority, but it's also disappearing because of the mobile technology, where people are buying more and more, not just from the internet, not just from their desktop or their laptop, but from their phone. So mobile shopping and marketing technology enables more and more of that 6 Ps, where more people, less people, different type of entity will supply the service, that you have to therefore think about who is delivering the service. And that's the point behind people. So the 4 Ps plus 2 additional Ps. Communication makes us more than the pull and push strategy, but I wanted to bring it there because it's very important. It's very important, and it's in itself, there could be a class, an entire class that would be called pull and push strategy. It could be a 14 weeks class just on that. And because it's so important, push and pull is essentially like the plus and the minus, the yin and the yang. And business is all around this push and pull strategy. Pull strategy is very much the communication or distribution. You can work on both ways as you're working with the consumer, and you getting the consumer to really go for you. The consumer is seeking you, you seeking the consumer. And so that's a very important and difficult thing to do, is you developing this relationship with the consumers. Push strategy is where you finding some intermediaries that are going to help sales go better, and you're motivating these intermediaries. So intermediaries might be influencers, they may be people in logistics, they may be the distribution network, being the retail and wholesaler, but you're finding these people in the way as intermediary, and you're asking them to participate, and you're giving them incentives. I won't go into too much depth on this, but there's basic strategies for distribution, and there will be one class just on distribution where I will be talking about this. And all of this makes sort of the flow on how you think about developing your business on those marketing mix, on the 4 Ps, on the fact that you have a customer that this customer has to be satisfied. This customer has a profile, also called a persona, which you're going to develop through the process of segmentation and targeting. And then you have competitors that are going for the market. So you're looking for the opportunities that are going to allow you to take advantage of these changes before them, or in a better way than them, because you've understood what they want in a way that is closer to exactly what they want. Therefore, you're going to be closer to their satisfaction. All right. So what I'm going to do now is I've actually planned for a video that I think is very inspirational. It's a video that is getting a little. It's not a recent video, but it's still very true, and I think it'll be true forever. Um, True forever. What does that mean? Well, it will be true forever because is how do you see yourself as a business person? You should see yourself as a leader, as someone that take leadership position in order to drive growth. So this video is about Steve Jobs presenting to his team and presenting to the world the concept of think different. So as I say, it's a little while back, but every business should watch this video now and then in order to be remembered or reminded on how you develop innovations. So what do you think?
Although it's like a little cliche, it's so true. I feel like it applies to mostly everything in life and how you look at things when you want to achieve them.
Yes.
Professor, I was gonna say, it when they mentioned Nike, I know I did a report on Nike and I was looking into their algorithm for their running app, and Nike actually just started giving away the app or the usage of the app. They no longer charge for it, and so it draws in a lot more people are able to be involved because they don't have to pay for it, and
Yeah.
then they get attracted to purchasing their shoes or any of their products, which I thought was smart. And then I started thinking also about Microsoft, and during the pandemic, they started giving away, or I wouldn't say giving away, but I know LAUSD got hold of PCs and started giving them to the students so that they could continue their school. And I'm sure other school districts did the same. So I think that, and then also another thing is I know in Market Watch, they're always talking about Microsoft now and how their stock is doing better, how they're improving. And so I'm starting to kind of think that, sometimes the overall goal of trying to make profit sometimes needs to be looked at in a different manner than trying to get every single customer for every single dollar, and looking at the larger aspect, which is, good faith.
Yes, of course. This is very true, and it's also because successful business are long term, so they're looking for this relationship more than they're looking for the transaction. And so the more you someone that I've seen this and my own example. So you see, I have this cognac brand that I run with my family, and I go in different states where I have different distributors, and then I work with different salespeople. And there's some people, for them selling is okay. Let's go see that store. Let's go see that buyer, and let's see what we can sell this person. Versus, I've met some salespeople that were remarkable, and they would go see that buyer and see what can they do to help that buyer buy the right product in order to make their business work better. So when you're a salesperson and you're trying to sell in order to move inventory, you don't have the same relationship with the people you're trying to sell than when you are trying to understand their problems and identify if you have any solutions in your inventory or maybe in someone else's inventory, but just for the sake of them doing better, because the better they do, the more you will gain from them soon or later. And you'll also gain from the trust relationship where they would see, because you see, when you go to a meeting, even if it's a sales meeting and everybody is expecting you, there's always a little bit of tension because there is I have something that I want to give to you, and the other person is, I may want something from you, but I don't know if I really want it. So there's this position, a defense and an attack almost. And when they see a salesperson coming that is not there to be on the attack, they are not on the defense, because they really see that this person is there in order to solve problem for them. So normally, marketing is well ahead of this. Normally, marketing is about, I'm going to solving problems. I want the world to be a better place, and I'm going to contribute to the world being a better place by bringing solutions to problems. And at the end, if it works, great. If it doesn't work, I would have done my best to try to do this. My position is leadership to bring something better for people. So then you may say, well, that's not so true. I mean, maybe someone who is very religious will do that. No, it doesn't have to be religious. You may not even believe in religion or believe in God. It's something that has to do between you and you in the world, you in your community, how much you want to do something. And so a business person is like this. The business person doesn't find an opportunity and then go for it. You wish that's what they were doing. That's what I'm trying to teach you. But most of the time, a business person is seeing ideas, and it's got this idea that she wants or he wants to be liked. She or he wants to improve their community. She or he wants to for these people to have more with the same. And then they convert this idea into a business by making it work. But it works most of the time because they were really into surfing an opportunity that was not just in their head, it was an opportunity that was in the community. So there were people that really care for the community. And if you really care for the community, and if you really care to do something for others, you are more in tune with what's going on in your community, and therefore your ideas are not so esoteric. They are ideas that actually belong to the community, and therefore it becomes natural. It's all authentic, right? And then you become successful because you're solving a genuine problem with a real, genuine, dedicated solution. And then what's difficult is if you've done it and you're successful, you may become more powerful. You may become like a known entity to solve problems. And then it's hard to do it again because now you have sort of the pressure to do it again. You're not as candid and innocent and willing and to do it. So now you have to do it the same candid way you did before and with the same genuineness that you had before. But now you have a marketing team, you have a research team, you have lawyers, you have all of this. And then it becomes much more corporate. Then you have to also deal with the satisfying of the employees. Now you have more employees, the satisfying of the shareholders, the profit, and all of these different issues that you have. And that becomes more difficult. So that's why when you see big companies like Nike, they have ups and downs, and Apple, they have ups and downs, but they need to have this culture, this constant culture, which is that we are there to serve people needs by bringing products that solve their problems. And therefore, we're not doing anything because of what the engineers want. The engineers want something that may not be what the consumer wants. Therefore, we don't have to listen to the engineers, is we listen to the customers. And then we tell the engineers to create functionally what they wanted. We're going to move to the second P. We finished the P of product. We're going to move to pricing. The next P's are actually much easier, and that's how we're going to finish this semester and this class on the last three P's. So pricing is, product is more obvious that it's important, obviously, otherwise you'll have nothing to sell. Price is not as obvious. Price becomes very obvious when you actually practice for real. Price is one of the P. The idea of price is that there's the absolute upper value, so the highest price that you could sell the product, and then you have the lowest price that you could sell the product. So the maximum price you could sell is maybe a price that is it's so high that only one person will buy the product. So you're selling toothpaste, Normally, how much is a toothpaste? $3, $5. Imagine someone came and say, I'm going to do a $1,000 toothpaste or a $10,000 toothpaste. Would it sell? I actually believe that if you are selling a $10,000 toothpaste, you probably would sell one, maybe more than one, but at least one. You couldn't sell the exact same toothpaste. You would have to make some modification in terms of the product, but also in terms of the communication and where you sell the product. So the problem there is that $10,000 you sell one toothpaste, $5,000 you sell 10 toothpaste, $1,000 you sell 100 toothpaste in the world of the same thing, and $50 you sell a million, and then $4 you sell 200 million. So that's why it's at $4 because they're selling 200 million. So there's no, and that's also why the price is lower because they're producing so much. So there's constantly this question about what would be the maximum price, but you may only selling it to one person, and what would be the minimum price, which is how much does it cost you to make this product and make it available to the consumers, because making the product available to the consumers has also a large cost. The distribution cost is sometimes more expensive than the production cost. And you can see that this price parameter is very much depending on if you are the seller or if you have the buyer. If you're the buyer perspective, you would want to buy it as close to the cost. If you're the seller perspective, you would want to sell it as close to the value. But the value is subjective versus the variable costs are objective. So the decision there comes from how good you're doing right now. If you're in a situation where your business is close to bankruptcy, you're going to have survival methods of defining the prices. And your prices are probably going to be close to costs or maybe under cost. If your strategy is to maximize how much profit you can make, so you're going to try to actually minimize all kinds of costs and maximize the price, maximize where you selling it, who you selling it, and all these different things. Your other interest may be the market share. So if you want to get as much market share, so to do that, you're going to have to sell as many products as possible, and therefore have a cost of the product as low as possible in order to increase the chances of selling the product, for the price to be a motivation, an incentive for people to buy the product and to be competitive. But then you may be in a position where the quantity of products you sell is not the most important. It's the perception people have of your brand and of the quality of your product. So that in that situation, you may want to sell the product higher. So it's not a profit issue, but it's an issue of perceptions. So what are the different costs? You have the fixed costs, which are the overheads, the costs that do not vary with the production. So the rent, the mortgage for the building, the salaries do not vary with the production. But then you have the variable costs, which are the goods that you need to buy, the supply that you need to buy, the electricity, the water, all of these things, in case they are variable, that you will have to pay, and they will vary. The less you produce, the lower your variable cost. The more you produce, the higher your variable cost. So the total cost is the combination of the fixed and the variable. So economies of scales, what are that? Economies of scales is the idea is that the more you buy something, the lower it becomes. If I get paid $100 to teach a class for one student, that one student has to pay $100. But if there is 100 students, each student has to pay $1. So the economy of scale is the same. Is if you're producing cars and you're producing 5 cars a day, that's going to be 20 tires that you're going to have to buy every day in order to build your cars. And therefore, the tires that you're going to buy are going to be a price with a discount for buying 10 tires a day from the producer of tires. But if you're doing 1,000 cars a day, then you'll have a much better price for these tires that you're buying to produce these cars, because the producer of tires is going to give you a better deal because they also have economies of scales by producing more tires, and they have reductions. So Economies of scales are therefore good, but you don't want to do economies of scales constantly, because as you have economies of scales means that you have larger inventory. So sometimes a large inventory of product is complicated. I remember in particular when we had the franchise bakery, when I was running this franchise bakery, we had the solution of buying cups. So they were white cups. So white cups were the cheapest one. Then we could buy color cups and color packaging, standard packaging. And they were a little bit more expensive than the white. And then we had decided to print our logo on the packaging. But when we printed the logo, the price of the packaging doubled because of the printing of the logo. So we've tried to look to have not double, but an increase of 5%, 10%, 20%. So then we realized that in order to make the price increase by just a few percentage, we had to buy tens of thousands. So the cups, when they are white, will buy 500 cups every 3 days. But when we asked for our logo and we wanted to be just a 15% increase, we had to buy 20,000 cups. The problem with 20,000 cups is we had an experience curve per the price, and then we were only 15% more expensive than the standard cup. But we had to take into account the cost of warehousing, because 15, 20,000 cups, that was taking the space of the whole inventory of packaging. And we just didn't have the cups. We had also the bags, and we had different boxes. And so now we had to double by multiply by 10 our warehousing spaces. So then we looked at the cost of warehousing all of this and all that. And then we found that therefore the product was going to be 2 times more expensive. The packaging was going to be 2 times more expensive. So we started looking for options, and there's one company that found the fact that a lot of people like us said, I want to buy custom packaging, but I won't buy custom packaging because of the warehousing issue. So they found this and they turned this into an opportunity. And then they went to see the customers and they say, if you make the packaging from us, normally the price is 15% up, but for a 20% up, we'll make the packaging and we'll warehouse the packaging. And every time you need the packaging, we will deliver the packaging in small quantity to you. So that way you don't have to have a warehouse. So it was an additional service. They had the space and they decided to sort of include that cost of giving the service, of providing the space with delays of using. So we went for that. So it was more than the 15% increase that we wanted, but it was definitely less than 100% increase of price because of the smaller quantity of products that we had to take in order to be able to warehouse it. You also have the experience curve. So the experience curve comes also from a volume for large quantities, but it's different. The experience curve is the more you produce, the better you become at producing. So it's more of a defect goes down, and the quantity that you are able to produce at a quality level goes up. So I actually experience the experience curve every time I go back to France, because every time I go back to France, I try to do, I get very excited with the cognac business and packaging. So I jump into the assembly line, which consists in putting the bottle on a belt, then the belt catches the bottle, put it on a machine, puts the top, put a sleeve on the top, and then puts the label, rolls the bottle some other places, puts it in the bottle, in a box, then the box goes into another area where there's a tape that goes on the box, tapes it, then it goes onto a pallet, and then we have the pallet on some kind of like a carousel, and then on the carousel we turn the pallet around some clear see-through film, and then a forklift comes, takes the pallet and move you away. I do that just in July. Usually that's when I do some of the packaging, and when I go there, I slow down the bottling process so much because I don't do it very often. So I don't have the right instinct and the right routine to catch everything. So I have not broken anything ever, but almost breaking bottles and all that. It's a little bit like typing. If you type a lot, eventually you don't even look at the keys. You just know where is the H, you know where is the 0, where is the P. You don't look at it. But if you don't type that much, you're very slow at typing. So the experience curve is this. It's the more you do it, the faster and still high quality that you're becoming. And therefore, a business that has a small production is usually more expensive because they don't produce as good as much within the same time. So all of this is therefore the idea of how much do you sell it for? I mean, what the customer is willing to pay and what price is it costing you? And should you be making more products in order to reduce your cost? And how do you reduce your cost? By doing economies of scales or experience curve. Then another component that has to do with price that is very important that you learn in economics is elasticity of demand. So the higher the price, the less demand, the lower the price, the more demand. So you have elasticity when there is some big changes, and there's inelasticity when you don't see big changes. So some products will react sooner to a price change, and some products will react later. Some products will even invert the curve, which is that if the price is too, if you're raising the price, most of the products, you're reducing the demand. But some product, if you're raising the price, you're also increasing the demand. So in the case of luxury products, um, to some extent, it is very true that if you raise the price, you increase the demand. But again, it also depends on the perception of luxury. There's not just one level of luxury, there's multiple levels of luxury. So if it's a lower level luxury and you increase the price, it becomes more like the reaction that you get from a premium where people will not increase their consumption. But if it's a product that is genuinely rare and perceived as a higher quality, if you increase the price, it will increase the demand. But these, the ones that usually react the most to increased demand, are the ones that you don't produce as much. So therefore, you do make, you should increase the price because you don't make that many, and therefore you increase the profit that you'll be making per product. Going back, and this is similar to what I said earlier when I talk about pricing, is therefore as a marketing person, you think about pricing as being as high as possible because you want to make the most profit. And so the highest price that you can make is the highest price that the consumer are willing to buy. So, you know, a limited edition Nike shoe, I mean, there used to be, I mean, 20 years ago, not that many. And now there's many limited edition Nike shoes. And I have to admit that I don't follow very much that trend, but my kids do. I have a daughter who's 19. And so if someone has a very limited Nike edition, this and that, she will notice it. And she will tell me, oh, this is at least $1,000 Nike shoes. To me, it doesn't make any sense that they are 10 times more expensive because instead of being blue, there's a little difference there and it's gold or whatever. But people that know, they know and they appreciate this difference. So the consumer perception is very high for them. But for me, this price is too high. So again, there's nothing wrong with a high or low price. What's wrong is when you are making a product too low for the target that you're selling the product or too high for the target that you're selling the product. So you have to know what is the threshold for your consumers. Okay. Then the next thing is therefore the opposite, which that would be the situation of a marketer is they need to understand their consumers. But sometimes people are not really good at understanding marketing, and it's not something that comes naturally to them. So they're going to revert to something which is more objective, such as what are the costs? And then you say, okay, so the cost is X. So how much more should we sell it to? And it's funny because I deal with different communities because that's how it is in America, where I deal with Asian communities, I deal with African American communities, and I deal with Russian communities and so forth. And every community has probably as a cultural value perspective, has a different perspective on how you price. And one community that I find amazing are the Vietnamese community. Why? The Vietnamese oftentimes they have a policy sometimes of $1. So when they buy something, they just add $1. And that $1 they just added may have been 20%, or it may have been 5%. So sometimes I'm wondering why they don't have more of a percentage increase versus than $1. But I found that sometimes that's the objective of how they think about sales and being a merchant is I just make $1 on everything. And eventually that's how it's going to work. So different ways to go, but I'm going to tell you the pros and cons of these different ways. So cost-based pricing is essentially saying, you know what, we're going to add a percentage to the cost. So this product cost us $10 and we're going to add 20%. We add 20% for everything. So it's going to cost $12. The problem with this perspective is you limiting the percentage of margin that you could be making because you could be looking at what do the consumer want and what do the competitors offer. If all your competitors are at $15 and you're selling at 12, you probably should be able to sell, but you may also be losing a lot of profit because you could have been okay at 13. You don't have to be at 12 since your competitors are at 15. Okay, so it's very simple. It's easy to employ, but it really doesn't look at what consumer wants and what competitors are doing. Why would you do that? So that was more of an accounting perspective. Now the break even is more of a finance perspective. The idea is to chart your sales and to sort of review that chart and analyze the amount of products that you have to sell. So here again, you know your cost, and then you make a variation of the amount of product that you sell. So if we sell 1,000 products and we make 10%, what is the return? So that's $1 million. Now, if we sell 2,000 products, $2 million. So you say, you know what? I have investors, and for the investors, I'm going to ask them for $2 million, and I want them to get their money back the first year and make 20% the second year. So that's the dilemma. That's the formula that we need to find. So then you're going to see your product. If you sell 1,000, how much profit you make, overall profit, and therefore you're going to simulate the markup that you need to have in order to make this overall profit. So the higher the markup, the less product that you have to sell. The less product you have to sell, the less resources. The less product you have to sell, the higher the cost of buying and making this product because it's a limited edition, the production. So then you increase the production, you reduce the cost, and then you increase the amount of overall profit that you make. But at that time, you have to see what is the quantity that you're selling. So maybe now it's 5,000 products. Then you go back to your TAM, SAM, SUM, and you're looking to see, did we guess estimate that we could be selling 5,000 of these products? So that's why, if you want, you have many monitors on your board. One monitor is the STP, segmentation, targeting, and positioning. The other one is the resources that you have. The other one is the TAM, SAM, SUM. And the other one are the amount of money that you own that to your investors. And all of this is like this equilibrium that you're trying to have in order to have a company that's sustainable. So the break-even is a really good strategy because it's the one that you see in Shark Tank pro episodes, for example. 99% of the time, that's what they use, is they try to see for what price, how much money does it generate. That way, when you speak to investors, the investors can see when do they get money, why would they want to invest in this. Then you have the value-based, which is the more marketing-oriented format, which is how much people, who are our targets, and what do they perceive the benefits to be. What's the benefit? So if you see that they have a big benefit, you're going to increase the price. If they see that you don't have a big benefit, they're going to lower the price. So That's why sometimes, when you buy, you don't want to look too eager or too interested, because otherwise they're not going to reduce the price if they were to reduce. It's like, I feel like saying, when you go buy a house, um, go buy a house, go bike to the house to buy it. That way they see you come up with a bike, and then you can more easily negotiate buying this house. But when you sell a house, make sure in front of your house you have the most expensive car of the neighborhood. So when you buy and sell, there's different perceptions that play in your favor or against your favor. So value-based is what are consumer benefits. The higher you see their benefits and the less competitors are able to fulfill these benefits, the more you can do value-based. Obviously, that's why you'll have the most market. Cost-based versus value-based, they go one against the other. Cost is simply simplified by just saying 10%. Imagine you trying to estimate the cost of this new product that you're making for Califia. So you're making, I don't know, a cookie dough for Califia, a plant-based cookie dough that people are going to be able to make some cookies with it. How much it costs you $5? How much do you sell it? 10? Why not 20? Why not 7? You really don't know. So cost base is say, we want to make 20%. That's easy, therefore, to guess what's the price. But the value base is going to require you to do some research. And again, is research on the competitors, research on the demand, and so forth. So the last thing is the competitor based. And that one is essentially, what are competitor prices? So you can have the same price as your competitor. You could have a dollar less, a dollar more, and you just want to be as close as possible to your competitors in order to be competitive. But again, there could be some strategic reasons why you would want to be above, because if you're above, you may be perceived as being better. If you're under, is you may be looking at getting some kind of market share. So as a takeaway, there's internal and external factors in order to decide of your price. And there's 4 approaches to set your price. There's the cost, the break-even, the value, and the competition-based pricing. Do you have any questions?
Yes, I have a question.
Yes.
So it's about those 4 approaches. So when you write a business plan, should we use those 4 or just one of the 4?
Okay, so thank you. That's a very good question. So you can use just one, and why not? But the reality is, I think I would use a combination, but it's not so much let's use a combination that way we cover our basis. Is let's use a combination and explain to, let's say if it's an investor that you're talking about, to that way we can explain the investor why did we use the combination, what's the purpose. So option 1, I use 1. Option 2, I use a combination. I don't know why, but that way I cover my basis. And then option 3, which is the best one, is I specifically select which one do I use in order to be able to have an argument that really explain my prices in a way that makes it more objective.
Thank you.
And so I would use them all, to be honest, but with different emphasis. So I would do cost-based to just show that what's the margin, and that way we are making money. I would use competitor because it's always strategic to say if you're under or above, and you could justify why you are above and under. So these will be my 5% and 5% of the decision making. But then I would use value and break even. If you only had to pick one, that's a tough question. If I had to only pick one,
the break even?
I think, the break even is the most objective one, the best one to speak to investor. So I would use, 75% of the time the break even and 25 the value. But if I was to use use 2, I'll use break even and value. The value one is very marketing, obviously. And I wouldn't not want to do just break even. That's not a good solution, right? I said 75 to 25, but maybe it's even more like 55, 45, right? Where 55 is break even. So that's what I'm trying to say, is break even is probably superior, because when you do a good break even, you do have to do some value and cost base, sort of required, right? So that's why break-even will work. But a very deep understanding of the consumer values is so important because it's also part of the opportunity. The better the opportunity, obviously, the better you are set up to understand the value consumer are getting. So that's why finding good strategic opportunity makes it easier down the road because you already have your value defined. So thank you for your question. That was really good.
Thank you. I have one more question.
Yes.
What is the difference again, the cost and the break-even again?
The cost is just a percentage. So that's why that one is the easiest one. And I can't say the competitor, but there's an employee, high-ranked employee that work for a competitor of my cognac business, and he told me their method of pricing, which was essentially adding 18%. And so I went like, wow, 18%. So that's the secret. Yeah, they just add 18%. And I asked him, why do they add 18%? And he said, well, the son who's running the business right now add 18% because his father was adding 18%. So the justification for their pricing approach is that's what the father used to do. And since when the father did that? Well, the father was doing this in the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s. And so when he took over in the 90s, he kept doing the 18%. I wonder if his son takes over, he's going to do, or his daughter, 18% as well. Obviously, it's so simplistic that it can be probably sometimes too high or sometimes too low. But I mean, the Excel spreadsheet is going to be done really quick. Because doing pricing takes a long time if you want to do it right. If you want to do it using the 4 approaches, it's going to take you days to do a good job. If you take just the cost-based pricing, it's 5 minutes max. And then the break-even is essentially therefore going to be looking at what is the quantity that we want to sell in order to make this amount of money. We want to make $1 million. And our product costs $10. How many do we have to sell to make $1 million? What would that be? 10,000 or something like that? No, 100,000 products. 100,000 products. If we sell it $20, we'll make $1 million. So we have to sell it $20. Then you look at your competitors and they are all $12.99. How can we sell it $20 when our competitors are $12.99? So then you go, okay, so we have to sell 1,000. Not 100,000 products. Now we have to sell 160,000 products. So now we are at $14. And so that's what you do, is you just plot on a graph the numbers until you find that this 1,000 product is good, or this 10,000 or this million product is good, until it's realistic in order to reach to that money. And that your investors are going to feel comfortable knowing that they put this much money for selling this much products that is reasonable to think that it's possible to do in 1 year based on all the marketing activities you're going to do, the competitors you have, and the quality of the product that you have. It's reasonable, but it's still subjective. So thank you for your 2 questions.
Thank you, Professor.
You're welcome.
Professor,
Yes.
what would be an example of cost-based pricing and an example of value-based pricing?
So cost-based pricing is, let's say it costs $10 to make a product, like making a VSOP cognac that costs $10. And then you say, and I'm going to put 15% margin, so therefore I'm going to have to sell it $11.50. Now value pricing is you say how much people are willing to buy it, and then you find that people are willing to buy it for between 11 and 13. So then you say, we could sell it 13 with value-based pricing. But then when you try to do more research, you find that your competitors are $12.59 on average. So then you look at your closer competitors, and then you look at your target, specific target, and then you find that they are more like a $12.50. So then you sell it $12.50 because it's It's essentially what the market, your target, is valuing the product to be. And instead of making 11.50, now you make 12.50, which is an increase of like 10% more than what you are supposed to. And therefore you feel very proud of yourself because you made more, 10% more than if you had chosen the cost-based pricing. So between the two, and maybe this is a little bit politically incorrect, but between the two is one would say one is better than the other, and another person would say yes, because one is a marketing decision and the other one is an accounting decision. So when it comes to pricing, and now I'm going to make enemies, but when it comes to pricing, you want most of the time to have the marketing decision versus the accounting decision. But so marketers are maybe better for that. But you have to be very careful because marketers can be wrong in terms of understanding all the costs. You see, marketers have a big bias, which is what the marketing is about, is satisfying. So they may be too focused on satisfying the needs of the consumers and therefore not understanding the costs that are associated with satisfying the needs of the customers. And therefore, with this increased cost of satisfying their needs comes a price. And because of this price of and this cost of making it better for them, is you decrease your markup. So there comes the cost based pricing, which says, okay, wait, do we still have are we still making some money? And that's why it is very good to have multiple people involved in looking at the pricing, which is you want someone that is a salesperson, you want someone that deals directly with consumers, you want someone that understands the competitors, you want someone that is just an accountant. It's black and white, very clear, and you want someone from finance that can actually do some simulation and looking at the results from the discussion between the accountant, the salesperson, the consumer researcher, and the marketer to define what could be the prices, what are reasonable, the expense and running all of this, and the potential quantity of customers that could be reached for the finance person to plot all of this and simulate all of that and give you an accurate timeline for when you will start making some profits. So you see, everyone is good. And what's wrong is when you think there's one better than another. And I was not trying to say that. But you know, if we reduce everything, maybe break even is better. If we reduce everything, maybe value based is better than cost based, because one is more of a market driven versus the other one is more of a mathematical in and out a percentage only driven.
Okay, cool. Thank you, Professor, for explaining that.
Yeah, wonderful. Thank you for your questions. Any other questions?
I had a question, Professor.
Yes.
You know how you were saying that depending on the market, when the price goes up, that could draw more of an incentive to get the product because they think it's of more value?
Yes.
If conversely the price went lower than the competitors, could that deter some customers thinking that it was less of a quality or even less value?
Of course. If your price goes down, in general, people perception is that there is a problem with the product.
They think it's on a sale or a discount.
Yes. And therefore they think it's too good to be true, and therefore they may not buy it and feel maybe there's something wrong with it. That's not all the customers. There's some people that are very confident, or maybe they wanted to buy it before. Now they see it down. They go, you know, I still want it. Then they take advantage of that opportunity. There's some people, they're always looking for discounts. So there's some people they don't really buy, but they buy if there's a discount. It's like, you know, do you want 6 tires? Six tires, the 6th tire is free. It's like, oh, I'm going to buy tires, you know, like I don't need tires. But there's some people, they're very promo oriented, and everybody's that way. Everyone sees a good deal, you want it, but there's some people that's sort of the trigger for them to purchase. So they are deal prone seeker, and they seek deals all the time. And so that will work for that. But these are not good customers because they are not faithful oftentimes. They're just looking for deals. So they're not someone that you want to really incentivize to buy your product. So the best way, if you reduce your product, is you have to reduce it for a specific group of people that deserve the reduction. You know, it's a little bit like sometimes you buy something And then on the website, there's a space and it says coupon redemption. And then you have to decide, do we give coupon to everybody? Do we even make the coupon available in the store on the website? If the coupon is available on the store on the website, it's nothing special. So eventually people, they're not going to feel that special, versus if you get a coupon and they say, because you're a loyal customer or because you bought this product and we want you to try another one, we'll give you a coupon. That's more of an incentive because you know it's more special. So this
Okay.
reduction becomes an incentive. So you have to be careful of giving too many reductions, because then people think it's just this company just gives a reduction, so you just wait for the next one. So you have to, right? So yeah, so when price goes down, it can reduce. But so what happens most of the time in general for all kinds of products, if I'm thinking about airline tickets and tomato juice, most of the time, if your price goes down, you have a surge. But what's interesting is how long is the surge? Sometimes very short. And therefore you lost because you made a lot of sales for a very short time, but you damage your brand. Sometimes it's very long. And therefore it was good that you did your decrease because people took it seriously. And so that you have to do some analysis. The difficulty in business is the more you do research, the more you prepare, the better you're going to be able to gain from it. But the problem in business is how much time do you have to prepare for everything versus being spontaneous and having some spontaneous decision, right? So like this morning, I had a 2-hour meeting for planning for 2021 for some project for the cognac company. And we were planning and planning and planning and going into so much detail. And at one time, I told everybody, I said, be careful because we're planning so much that we need to leave some space for adapting on the moment. Because otherwise, we don't look at what's going on in the market. We're looking at our plan. And we're so focused on the plan that the world may be changing and we don't realize that. So you have to have a plan. It's like a pencil. In business, almost everything is in pencil. Too much pencil kills spontaneity. No pencil puts you at risk. And so should I raise the price? Should I decrease the price? Look at experience. See, anticipate what competitors are doing and really try to read what your consumers are going to do with a decrease. Even I believe someone could say that I'm more educated than average on this subject. And I would say that's probably true. And I still make a lot of mistakes. But I find it very interesting because I'm learning as I do it. I've done a number of products that I sold too low, and I've done a number of products that I sold too high. And I was thinking that the opposite was going to happen. And so you learn as you go. But what I found very interesting is if you sell value product, you most of the time better served by selling it higher. When you sell value product and you say, you know what, it's really good value, I'm going to over satisfy the customer by keeping the price low and keeping the quality high, you don't sell more. Customers, for the most part, are not very knowledgeable. And therefore, if you were to increase the price, this would have a very big impact on them believing it's better, more than you increasing the quality. People perceive a quality change faster from an increase of price than an increase of quality of the product, because for the most part, people are not super knowledgeable and connoisseurs. And that's even more true for me because I sell a cognac, and a cognac is very subjective. If you sell objective products, maybe that does not apply as much. But for subjective products, you can really think about the price as being a big element that makes a variation for quality perceptions because it's subjective.